I would recommend anyone in business to pay as much attention as to what is going on internally as well as externally. The internal work does really affect how you show up for business, even pricing conversations and how you treat team members or freelancers, contractors. And specifically, what I mean by that is you just do the work, like hire a coach, business coach if you're not really good with business, a branding coach, a life coach. All of these different coaches I have been lucky to have experience with, and they directly influence the way I show up for work.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we are always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast. Phil Lashley, and Phil started his journey. Went to high school and then went to college in the Caribbean. I think it was in Barbados. From
That's
there,
right.
worked with a few people in the video production industry, as well as became interested in commercials and movies. Came to the U.S. and did some studies in college. Then started working in Hollywood as an art student. Hit a bit of a roadblock and decided he didn't want to be an art student, and that led him to where he's at today. So, with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Phil.
Thank you, Devin. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely excited to have you on. So, I just gave a quick walkthrough to a much longer journey. But why don't we rewind and unpack that a little bit and tell us a little bit about how your journey got started coming out of high school and going to college in the Caribbean.
Yeah, essentially, it was just this mad chase for finding out how commercials were made. That was my primary goal. It had nothing to do with what I studied in college back in Barbados. I was a computer technician, had a career track for that job and everything, but just
So
scratching the itch.
you're just a dive, or so we don't or gloss over that too quickly. So do unpack
Sure.
that just a little bit. So you went off to college, and you said what was the studies as you were going to college?
Yeah, computer studies. The associate degree in computer studies was what was my focus.
Okay, perfect. And so you're
Yeah.
you're doing that through college, and then as you're coming out of college, kind of what was the direction or the intent, or kind of where did you head from there?
Yeah, the goal was just to get into any large organization that would use an IT technician. And quite frankly, my older brother, he just said, "Hey, that's where the money was at. Just to get a Microsoft certification, and that's it." And I did do the course. I did graduate and everything, but there was this huge dissatisfaction. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but when your heart is not in it, into anything, it's like you start making all kinds of silly mistakes, and that was happening on the job. So the signs were clear, the writing was on the wall. This career path was not for me.
Hmm. And I'm just
um,
curious, kind of what was it about the career path? Was it the type of work you're going to be doing, the industry
yeah,
you're in, kind of the career trajectory, or kind of fill us in, kind of what was the reason, or what was kind of the motivation for saying, hey, this maybe work for other people, but it's not right for me. How did you kind of figure that out?
just raw interest. Like I was not passionate about going further into like, okay, if somebody has an issue with the computer or this corporation, the whole network is down. There's a certain drive that should be in you for whatever it is you do, and that was not there. Like I
Hmm.
was purely about the money, and my brother, he gave me good advice, but clearly it wasn't the only factor. You know, money's not everything, and I learned that the hard way.
No, that's fair enough. So you kind of you come to that understanding, saying, "Hey, this might be a good career path for others. Does it make sense for me? Not necessarily
Yeah,
what the drive or the passion is going to be." So as you're coming to that realization, kind of the next question is what do I do next, or where does that lead me? So kind of, or
right.
where did that lead you from there? Kind of how did you figure out what you wanted to do?
Yeah, it was just awareness of what I was interested in. So essentially I began to pay attention on what I was paying attention to, if that makes sense. It was clear to
Hmm.
me what wasn't uh, my desire, what wasn't my interest. So I shifted that to, okay, what am I interested in? And it's a question that I encourage a lot of students, especially, to ask themselves, like, what are you really interested in, regardless of what your parents might be pushing you towards. Um, and that curiosity, that natural curiosity, takes you to the next thing, and you just have courage to follow it. So at the time, the Art Institute from Miami, Florida, they were doing this massive job expo, career day, and I went. I saw. I drank the Kool-Aid. I was sold the dream of, hey, if you ever want to know how commercials are made, we have the perfect program for you. And I did a little exploration and realized, okay, this is legit. It's not a long degree. It is very expensive though. That was the biggest thing. And because it was in US dollars, of course, the US dollar to the Barbados dollar at the time was 2 to 1. It still is to the day of this recording. Very strong. And I had like a year to really convince my parents, which was not difficult, but closer family members and people who had the means to invest, to just take a risk on me, just helping me to gather the funds to get started. And my dad, huge contributor to that. He was the one who believed that, you know what, I think I can take a chance on this guy.
So now you say, okay, kind of come to that realization, figure that out a bit. Somebody's willing to take a chance on you. So kind of, what trajectory, or kind of where did you head from there? Kind of what was the next stage in the career evolution?
Yeah. So I got accepted to the school, the art school in Miami, and it was a beautiful experience because it was the first time in any educational setting that I was like, I wanted to be there, first of all. The interest was high, the exposure was great, not just my peers, very diverse group of students in Miami. The professors were also diverse. We had professors who were working in active feature films, like Lord of the Rings was out at that time. And I had this nice array of experience all at once. The issue was, Devin, I never knew which semester was going to be my last because it was really expensive. And looking back now, I can say this with ease. But at the time, it was very a little stressful, not knowing when the funds would cut out. So that naturally encouraged me to just make the most of every conversation, every opportunity, every internship, even unofficial internships. I just cold call studios, and it really became the start of this, I guess, entrepreneurial spirit, right? Where you're going after the thing that you really want. Yeah. So one thing led to another. I eventually finished art school, and by a series of, I call them miracles, right? I was able to get land a dream job in Hollywood as a junior artist at a visual effects company, and they were doing, some really high end effects for commercials at the time. When that was over, I had the next gig. As I was working during the day, lunchtimes I would go to interviews at other companies. It was crazy, man. Um, this idea of not knowing when it's going to be the last usually is not a, I don't know if it's a healthy thing, Devin, but it really got me going. Just keep the momentum going. So in a nutshell, in a space of 6 months, I had three beautiful contracts as a freshly out of school art student in the feature film industry, the visual effects industry, and the commercial television, really high end commercial world. And that was fantastic. It was fantastic until.
No, no, that's awesome. And so you had that opportunity to say, okay, got through art school, had a bit of that uncertainty, but nonetheless made it through. And then you're getting to work on some cool industry. Sounds like, some cool, different projects and that.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of walk us through as you're doing that now. Kind of what period of time or when did this occur? Kind of when did you come out of art school and start working in the industry?
Yeah, this was around 2020, 2006, 2010. 2005, 2006. That was the time when a lot of uh, studios were pouring money into effects, and it does a little. It did right now. There's a little of that. You know, a lot of things are going streaming, so the attention, the priorities has shifted. But it was a beautiful exposure to how clients think, how producers think, how creative directors, the role. You know, you learn all this stuff in textbooks as an art student, but to see it play out in real life, it was mind blowing actually. Yeah.
No, it sounds like a great opportunity, and sounds like it was a fun time for you. So now you did that, or how long did you work in the industry, or how long or did you do that, or were you at that in that position?
Yeah. So freelancing in California was about a year and a half tops. The dates are a little fuzzy right now, but before I got too invested into this world, this new shiny object world, I quickly realized that I was dying on the inside. I was burning out one, and two, I didn't see any clear growth track for what I was interested in. And again, the same type of awareness that happened before I got to art school in Barbados came to me again, where the question is, hey, am I really interested in this? Am I really happy with this? And the answers were no. Um, I couldn't really pinpoint the exact issue at the time, but basically, this discomfort led me to looking at how I can use this creative tool skill set as a motion graphics designer, as an animator, instead of just doing it. It's like, how can I use it? That was the flip for me. And that became this pursuit of just looking at other industries to see where can this be applied, who can benefit really from this, who can I serve with this skill set.
So now you decide, okay, a bit of, I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs that you're dying a bit inside, or, you're trying to figure out, hey, where can I, apply the skills, apply the things that I enjoy, but also have the structure that makes me happy. So as you're kind of going through that, kind of, where did you land, or kind of how did you proceed forward to figure that out?
Yeah, yeah, it came by just a really random opportunity. A friend of mine was getting her book published by one of the top three traditional publishers in the US. And she knew what I was doing. She knew what I really had a passion for, which was thought leadership, just helping these people with ideas to express them visually. That's all I knew at the time. And she knew this. So she was like, hey, can you help me just create some assets, some designs, some animations to promote my book? And that became the conversation starter with some key marketing directors at the publishing house. They saw what I was doing. Overnight, I created these packages and said, "Yeah, let's do this." And it became some recurring work on the side, which I was really interested in more than the freelance projects I was getting at the time. So that's when the table turned for me. Sorry, Devin, you're muted.
Sorry about that. You're muted there for a second, so I was talking to myself. But no, I was saying if so you're doing a bit of freelance at the time, kind of figuring things out. And how did you kind of make the full-time transition, or kind of what was that path that led you to kind of where things are at today?
Yes, as a freelancer in the entertainment industry, I began to attract, different industries as well, while still trying to figure out what is the thing I really want to do. And it was 2023 when the tech industry it took a hit. That some of the big tech companies laid off thousands of employees. A lot of talented people, designers, artists, were just looking for work. And how this affected me was the point of where I would get my usual my usual work. The smaller studios, they too began to freeze budgets and stuff like that. And basically for like 9 months, I was not getting any projects, and nothing serious came in. But that allowed me, I call it the gift of time now, to really look inwardly and see what is it that I really have to offer these people that I really care about. 2003 was when I identified my ideal client, the visionary who has a passion for teaching their intellectual property. And what I do is I turn these into clear visual frameworks and stories that considers their brand and the narrative that they really wanted to share with the world, and package that into the right assets, the visual assets. So 2023 was that time when I saw clearly who it was. And again, part of this was just realizing who was attracted to me. So at that time, I think it was September 2023, I noticed that, okay, for all my life, I've been attracted to visionaries, thought leaders, people with ideas, speakers, authors. Hey, Phil, what do you think about this? How can I make this look better? These kind of little questions that I would just dismiss, it all came together full circle when I realized, oh, these are my people. Anyone who's trying to build an intellectual property visually, those are my people. And with that clarity, I just built offerings and services around that.
No, that's awesome. So you got started 2023. Sounds like kind of when you made the full-time leap, or otherwise,
Yes.
really, kind of really engaged on that front. So you've been, kind of doing that for, coming up on a couple of years, year and a half, 2 years now. So kind of
Yes.
walk us through as you've kind of made that leap, done that, more of a full-time effort, and put that as a focus. How's it gone for you? Has it been a rocket ship of to success and more money than you know what to do with, or or struggling paycheck to paycheck and wondering if you'll ever make a go of it, or somewhere in the middle, or kind of
Yeah.
walk us through or catch us up how things have gone?
Nice. Prior to 2023, I was always full-time freelancing. Sometimes I would switch between full-time with a studio, but also still full-time freelancing, if that makes sense. And my type of client was all over the place. If you're listening to this podcast only, my hands are going in the scribble. Clients from all different types of industries. And it was always like a valley, hills, peaks, up and down. That's the nature of the game as a freelancer. But when 2023 came, it became this, with this clarity, this newfound clarity, it became this gradual climb up the mountain, steady. So no, I don't have that burst of revenue that I don't know what to do with, but it has been very encouraging to slowly build something that, I get positive feedback from clients every week now, actually. Clients offer their testimonials without me trying to, hustle. You know how that goes sometimes. There's definitely a reward for building this slowly. And in 2 years, we can circle back. I might have something different to say, but slowly building the business is the way I'm doing this.
No, makes perfect sense. And, that's the typical path as you slowly build things out, you evolve, you figure things out, you improve it, and
Yeah.
otherwise head in that direction. So it sounds like you're in the midst of things and going along down that path. So that's awesome. So now with that, as you kind of reach the present day, if you're to kind of look out the next 6 to 12 months, kind of where things are headed or what things might
Yeah.
look like, kind of what does that next 6 to 12 months look like for you?
Yeah. So what I'm seeing right now is a lot of people starting their thing, regardless of the reason, whether it's also out of fear or they're realizing that, hey, you know what? Life is short. I need to make a bigger impact. Whatever the reason, people are building out their original thinking these days in the form of a course. More people are wanting to be on stages. And the next 6 to 12 months, what I see is people owning their intellectual property like they never have before. And the way I am positioning myself, I'm actually encouraging people to rethink how they see the intellectual property. Don't see it as just one dimensional, like you're just gonna tell people what you do. You need to show them, right? So in essence, I see intellectual properties these days as a multi-sensory experience. It sounds a little woo, but instead of just talking it, you can let people see it, you can let people feel it, you can embrace storytelling. This is a position I've taken. And as I get on more stages and podcasts like this one, and the feedback comes in, it's like people are really resonating with it, and it has become the way to differentiate themselves. So the next year or next 2 years, I see more of it, more people visualizing their intellectual property, getting services like yours, trademark patent, getting serious about their thinking. It's like taking ownership. That's what I see.
Oh, it's awesome. Sounds like it will be an exciting time yet to come, and some good opportunities, and hopefully some fun along the way. So,
Yeah.
well, perfect. Well, with that, now that we've kind of caught up to the present day and even seen where things are headed a bit for you, great time to transition to the two questions I always like to ask at the end of each episode. So we're going to jump to those now.
Sure.
So the first question I'd like to ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What'd you learn from it?
Yeah. Yeah. Good one. Good one, Devin. I would say consistently this decision has been made, poor decision, and that has been just assuming what clients will be willing to pay. It sounds very dumb saying it out loud, but over the past, prior to 2023, I created, a few businesses that were just hand in glove to different types of niche markets. And I've always capped myself, right? Thinking, oh, they're not going to pay this. Oh, it's a 5K project. They're not going to pay more than that. And what has happened was, as someone who never had experience in business, and I'm sure some of our audience listening to this episode might relate, they learn things as they go on. They get coaching and stuff like that. And when you have your prices too low, it creates this pattern of, it's an unhealthy pattern where you're not having enough profit margin. And yes, you're doing the thing that you love to do, but business wise, you're suffering. So that's one mistake that I'm not proud to say, but I made it for many too many times to be proud of.
Yeah, and that's, I think, always an easy area to make the mistake. In other words, you're trying to say, hey, I don't want to price myself out of the market, or in other words, make it so
Yes.
that it's unapproachable, or
Mm.
people won't be able to afford my services, because in that sense, you won't have the business to support it. And yet, on the other hand, if you price yourself too low, you're leaving yourself on, money on the table, and you're making it more
Yes.
difficult to get by, and otherwise to build and grow the business. So finding that
Yeah.
right balance and figuring that out along the way is certainly always an area to make some mistakes, but also to learn from. So definitely a good one to learn
Yeah.
from.
Yeah.
Now, second question that I'd like to ask is, so now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what would be the one rule of thumb you'd recommend?
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't mind, I could add a little more to that answer. I do think instead of fearing so much of just pricing yourself out of the market, what I've learned is to get good at articulating your value, especially as a creative service provider. Um, it's something that's not really done. Creatives don't know how to talk about the real value of what you're creating. And when that happens, when I started to do that, I started practicing that, the clarity, the conviction, the confidence, these intangible things, then people perceive the creative work in a different light. Is more than just eye candy. Um, as it relates to advice for anyone I can give, just 2 years into solid business, I don't know how much advice I can give, but this one thing I see across the board, and I would recommend anyone in business to pay as much attention as to what is going on internally as well as externally. The internal work does really affect how you show up for business, even pricing conversations and how you treat team members or freelancers, contractors. And specifically, what I mean by that is you just do the work, like hire a coach, business coach, if you're not really good with business, a branding coach, a life coach. All of these different coaches I have been lucky to have experience with, and they directly influence the way I show up for work.
No, I think that's a great piece of advice, your rule of thumb, and definitely insightful. So that's perfect. So Well, with that, now as we do wrap towards the end of the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee,
Yeah.
they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Super simple. PhilLashley.com. One-stop shop. If you go there, you have access to social media handles and you can directly reach out to me from there. I'm also the same name on LinkedIn if you prefer just LinkedIn, but PhilLashley.com is the hub.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, make a new connection, if nothing else,
Oh,
make
thank
a new
you.
best friend. So, well, with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. Just go to inventiveunicorn.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And along that note, if you ever need help along your journey with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we are always here to help. Well, thank you again, Phil, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you. This is refreshing. Thank you for having me, Devin.